Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. This is the first in a series of 3 podcasts with our friends at WorkJam, and we are joined today by Tim Wheeler. So if you cast your mind back to the podcast that we did with Tim in September of 2020 called Reimagine Communication, Tim introduces us to WorkJam and all that he's done. Welcome back, Tim. How are you?
Thanks, Simon. Pleasure to be here. I'm very well, or let's say as well as one can be in this world of crazy lockdowns and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Strange times, and I'm sure it will continue, unfortunately, to be for some while longer. But as long as people are well and safe, I think it's all for the greater good.
Absolutely.
So this is the first of a series of 3. Today we're going to touch on task management, and then in number 2, I think we're going to touch on customer experience, and number 3 on operations. So in the last pod, Tim, you gave us an overview of WorkJam, what you guys do. For those that don't remember, your Vice President Sales EMEA. Give us the kind of 30-second overview of WorkJam for those that didn't listen to the previous pod.
Okay, I'll talk about the central issue that we solve, which is that a frontline employee or someone who's not sitting in front of a laptop and an email system all day, every day, struggles to engage with their employer. So there are many different systems, IT systems they need to talk to, many different reasons to communicate, different things to communicate. We bring all of that into one platform to make it very easy for an organization to communicate in many different ways with their workforce and hence be maximally efficient and with a maximally engaged and happy workforce.
Brilliant. Okay, so that sets the scene. For more detail, as I say, if people refer back to that podcast we did in September 2020 called Reimagining Communication. Now, you guys are using a really neat strapline called Workforce Orchestration. So talk to me a bit more about that, because that for me gives the kind of connotation of the conductor with the wand who's making everything work and bringing it all together. Is that the kind of vibe you're trying to get from that strapline?
Yeah, I think that's not a bad analogy, actually, and it works on a couple of levels. I mean, one is you need, as an employer, to orchestrate all of the different engagements that you want your employee to have with yourself. That's, they engage with the HR function at times, they engage with marketing functions at times, they certainly engage with operations and their store manager, maybe data and reporting, going to different parts of the organization. So actually orchestrating all of those different things that you need from your workforce is one level of looking at that orchestration. But I think the main level actually is having a workforce that are not constrained by their IT systems so that you can go, what actually do we want our workforce doing during the day to give maximum efficiency and maximum customer service and maximum benefit to both us as an organization and our customers? And that's the real orchestration. And it moves away from the idea of siloed applications or siloed functions, which really constrain how your workforce will be working, and moves to that idea of just make sure that they're doing what you want them to do at the time they want them to do it, serving the customers when they need to be served, doing the different tasks when they need to be done, unconstrained by their IT system. Orchestrating the workforce works on a number of different levels.
Yeah, I love the strap line and some of the things that it makes you think about in your mind. And I know we touched on it in the previous podcast, but just for reference, so this is about bringing it all together in one framework, isn't it? So doing the change once, and then within your application adding different tiles or different parts of it, so the employee's not faced with a choice of 5, 6, 7 different apps that all look different, that all have a different user experience, that all need a different login. It's about consolidation. It's about making it easy from the front end, easy from the back end, to drive that employee experience, whether it be related to tasks, whether it be related to payroll, whether it be related to checking a schedule, whatever it might be.
That is right. I'll say one thing, though, which is that actually underneath the surface in your IT ecosystem, there's often a lot of change going on. And actually what we're seeing in the marketplace right now is people, in response to the turmoil that we've been through and the new world that's emerging, are looking at digital transformation programs where they're going to be changing different subsystems in their ecosystem over the next 1, 2, 3 years. So actually, it doesn't need to be a big bang thing that's done now and remains static. One of the main benefits actually is if you give a consistent user interface, give a consistent platform that all the different pieces can plug into, actually you make that coming digital transformation much easier to manage with your staff. Because what they see is they see the WorkJam platform, whether it's showing them, their schedule, whether it's giving them some communications, whether it's giving some training, and actually these different pieces can change underneath without affecting the frontline workforce. And I think digital transformation, I know that's not the topic of this talk, but it's certainly highly related. Organizations are going to struggle with managing multiple elements of change in the coming years, and actually having that consistent platform can make sure that as much of that as possible is actually transparent to the frontline worker.
And I assume part of your kind of cause and your journey is minimizing that impact on employees in terms of that whole transformation piece and maximizing their experience.
Yeah, that's right. And what we find with our customers is that when you look at all of the different things that a frontline worker does and all the different systems that are in place to support them, you can kind of choose what is the biggest hassle for us at the moment, or the biggest opportunity to make positive change that's out there. Focus on that first, get the benefits, and then actually you can bring in other elements of change or other pieces into the platform as we go. So what we see with our customers is there's always a starting point on the journey. It's always different customer to customer. Different customers have different needs, but they're very quickly seeing that the benefits of this united application that's really easy to use, that gets adopted very readily, means that they really want to bring in new elements as quickly as they can. And that's why the orchestration is such an important thing, because actually you get a virtuous circle when you do this. You're orchestrating, let's say at the beginning, how your schedule works and how you're sharing shifts and this kind of thing. And then you bring in task, and you're actually combining how you execute in store with who you schedule and when and why, very much related. Then you bring in training, so that, when you observe that different stores are actually executing at different levels of quality, you can give targeted training to the particular store or stores that are struggling for some reason. So, you bring in training, and you can add elements that really give a positive journey where you start with great ROI, but you keep getting better over time.
Yeah, no, I love that. And this, the kind of crux of this one was around task management. So talk to me about how task management works in WorkJam. It tends to be in the workforce management world one of the newer elements for most of the vendors, if I'm honest, in their portfolio. But I think more and more in a post-COVID world, whatever that looks like, compliance of task around certainly health and safety, cleaning, and colleague welfare will be absolutely paramount. So just talk to me a bit about the task management element of WorkJam and some of the benefits that people are seeing and the things that you're driving through it.
Yeah, well, effectively, whether you're a store, whether you're a petrol outlet, we have customers like Shell, whether you're a restaurant opening up in the post-lockdown world, there are many different things that you need to execute, and you need your staff to execute, from the very mundane to a very quick cleaning procedure, maybe to something that looks far more like a program. So if you have a big revamp of your stores and you have promotional structures and changes and things that you need to happen in the store, that can look much more like a multi-person, multi-location program that you need to execute. So one thing that the last year and the pandemic has shown is how important it is to be able to execute consistently. And this was really brought to the fore when we had the first lockdown. We went into lockdown. We had to, at some moment, come out of lockdown. So both of those facts introduce a need to execute a series of steps. You need to execute them consistently. And you need to execute them in an auditable way, whether it's for your own measurements and KPIs, or whether it's actually for, government or some regulatory body or some future need to show that you've done the right thing. So the pandemic showed everyone how important consistent execution is. And I think where people are at the moment is they're realizing that whilst it was really highlighted by what happened in 2020, looking forward, all of those drivers are still there. We still want to execute consistently across an organization. And I mentioned Shell because they're actually a great example. A global organization, many countries, franchise model, okay, which adds a wrinkle. But you think, if you're Shell, we want consistent execution. We want a consistent experience from all of our customers. We don't care what country they're in, what franchise, ownership structure they happen to be under. We want to make sure the values of our brand and the quality of our brand is delivered wherever we are. How do you do that if you can't drive execution consistently in an easy to use way, regardless of where the staff happen to be? So consistent execution, and that's one example, but it's the same for any retailer. If you have multiple stores in a country or multiple restaurants in different cities, you still want to make sure that your brand promise is delivered, and that requires consistent execution. And how do you do it in a world where staff turnover's always been there, but new people coming on, people coming back from time off with the lockdowns. There's a churn in staff as well, where you need a way that's really easy to adopt, that presents to your people in a very easy way. Here's what you want to do. Here's how we want you to do it. And the end result is efficient execution, high quality execution, and everyone needs that right now.
No, I agree. And do you think some organisations, even some really big multinational ones, were caught short at the start of the pandemic in realising that they had no way of actually communicating to all frontline workers or deskless workers in a consistent manner or in any manner?
I think so, but I think what a lot of people have observed is that last year kind of accelerated things that were happening anyway. So, when the pandemic hit, some companies that weren't really set up to deal with this kind of thing really went through a very fast progression. So they started with, let's just get messaging in place. So if our employees are at home, they're not in front of their email system. If they had one, if they're a typical retail worker, they probably aren't even on an email system. So let's get something in place where we can deliver messages. Let's put something in place where we can deliver something more than a message. So, we had customers of ours who would have a C-level briefing once a week, some of them once a day, actually, where they say, here's the latest on what's going on with the pandemic. Here's what we want you to know in a quick 60-second video that comes to your mobile device. Then people wanted to bring people back when the lockdown ended. So that's scheduling. That's letting people know we're opening up again. There are some procedures for opening up. Here's how we're going to schedule you, communicating that information. And obviously executing the task was absolutely key to that particular step. And that sequence is something that I think many customers had started. Many were quite a long way through that journey, and some just hadn't started it. So what the pandemic year did was really accelerated what we think was going on anyway. Because you're right that task management historically wasn't as highly adopted as some other solutions that are out there. But I think customers, even pre-pandemic, were realizing that they were missing something here. It's not enough to send out an email to a store saying, hey, here's a promotion that we're doing. You actually want to make sure with much more vigor that what's going on is what you actually want to go on, and you measure the results, and you measure how long things took, and you survey, what did you find about what you've just executed, and you learn as an organization. So I think a realization was there. But what we've seen is a massive acceleration of a trend that I think had already started.
So touching on some of that kind of ROI, return on investment from task management, if we think about retail generally, the holy grail in retail is compliance. So how do I get my chain of 200 stores to implement this promotional end to this standard with this point of sale on and these price tickets laid out in this way consistently? How do I know essentially it's done to the right level, or what are the issues that are getting in the way of not being able to do it, and how do they rectify? So I assume that that helps almost take that forward in a massive steps, almost like quantum leaps forward by surfacing all that data through WorkJam, but being able to point out any outliers or issues to the relevant teams centrally. Shelves didn't arrive, or the price change wasn't done centrally. All those things that will get drip fed back, I assume you can surface a lot easier.
That's absolutely right, and the level of visibility and detail is actually completely different to what people are used to. I mean, taking that example of executing a new promotion, say, what might have been an email or a couple of emails to a store manager, here's what we want you to do, because that's captured and communicated not just to the store manager but also to the individuals that need to execute as a part of this program. You can actually see through the process what's being done. Have we received the banners and the promotional materials that we're going to be putting up? Yes, we have. Okay. Have we started putting it in place? How long did it take overnight to get this stuff there? So we can work through the different steps with visibility of the steps as they occur. But then we can do things like, for some steps, ask that we give some sort of more detailed feedback on what that is. It might be a survey. We might just say there's a four question survey we'd like you to fill out at this moment, so we learn something about what you've done. It might be, let's take a walkthrough video. Let's just walk through the store and show the promotional thing that we've just put in place. And having that video lets head office go, okay, that one's perfect. Okay, actually, there's something that we wanted there that's not quite right. Let's adjust what we've seen. So you get a real feedback loop. But like I say, the feedback loop can even go after the execution of a particular program. It's highly related to the training function. You can really identify, we got great efficiency from a certain set of stores, we got some problems at some different ones, and the remedial action, whether it be a training course, whether it be something else, can be targeted at the people and the stores and the areas that need them, rather than some sort of general, we didn't quite get the efficiency that we wanted, let's cause everyone to have to act, even if actually they were very good at what you asked them to do. So visibility is absolutely there. Shell's, a good example. They had to introduce new safety processes, cleaning processes, just with their pumps. The pandemic hits, everyone's touching the same pumps. So the frequency with which they needed to act, what they actually did, a new diligence and a new thoroughness. When you can execute that and you can know that you've done it, it means that your own staff get a confidence about what's going on, that you're looking after them, that you're safe, that you're effective, but the customers really have that same feeling. And so executing these kind of tasks really goes to maximizing your relationship with the customer. Because when customers have confidence, when customers know that you're doing the right things, then you're going to have more footfall in the store, ultimately more sales and more revenue.
Yeah, it's interesting because I cast my mind back to when I was a store manager in DIY stores, what feels like yesterday, but unfortunately is many moons ago now. And that promotion example, just thinking through the steps that we used to go through. So the brief had landed, had we received it, no one knew. Then Royal Mail had delivered the brown box with all the promotional headers and shelf talkers in. Sometimes I'd get it, sometimes somebody had put it somewhere and there'd be debated, did it ever land? Then the stock had come in. Then we'd maybe need a new shelf, but they'd sent the wrong shelf bracket. So there's loads of points of failure in there that as operators we'd kind of work around, but actually from a consistent and compliant point of view, it probably wasn't consistent across the estate and was compliant to a degree, but the degree was how we locally fixed all the issues. Now, at some point, I might have moaned to my regional manager or somebody who visited my head office saying, well, whenever Royal Mail deliver the point of sale, they just leave it by the front desk and it gets lost with everything else.
Yeah.
So I can see some other benefits within this specific example we're talking about of, being able to surface poor delivery from suppliers. So whether that be your point of sale supplier, your shelving supplier, your stock supplier, because it lands in different ways. But commercially, there must be a massive benefit knowing or that everybody has that promotion on at the right date at the right time. Therefore, customers are getting advantage of the discount because clearly it's a promotion and it's saying, while stocks last or 50% off, whatever it might be. If you've got stores drip feeding that across the week, so it should be on a Wednesday, but I'll do it on a Thursday, you'll do it on a Friday because you're a bit late. Somebody else will do it on a Saturday because they forgot. Commercially, you're not taking advantage of that offer to the customers, and as a customer, you're not getting the advantage of the offer. So there's lots of other side tangible benefits aside from the obvious bits you see store-wise, head office-wise, that must come into play as well.
Absolutely right. And you've given a couple of very good examples of a really good feedback loop that you want to have in place. So with the example of maybe the difficult thing to execute from your past, if the feedback loop is a conversation with, someone up the chain to say, oh, you know what, this was quite difficult, it's not as concrete as it could be. And so, head office or the people who are sending down these programs to execute, they may not even know that it was difficult to execute because, they really want to do the right thing. So having concrete feedback to say, these are the things that were difficult, these were the problems that we had, these were the suppliers that were a problem for us, then they can go and address. And that means next time you get an improved version of the same thing, which is really important. But I think the other feedback loop that you identified is when you have the granular detail, you can actually relate your execution to what's going on in customer world, which is what matters, right? So, if you don't know what was executed and when and at what level of quality, if you get some anomalies in there, for this store, the promotion really didn't deliver very much. Was that because you didn't execute it well? Or was that because there's some phenomenon going on in the market that you really want to understand and react to? If you don't have this information, you just don't know. The same, if there are a couple of stores who've absolutely gone gangbusters, is that because they did something different in the execution of this promotion? If so, what was that? What can we learn as an organization to make sure that next time everyone performs in that outstanding way? So having the information lets you understand what's going on in your organization and outside and lets you react to it and be better next time. So really important with that feedback loop. But I'll mention another thing as well, which is some feedback loops are important in a different way because they may be regulatory, they may be legal. So more than just, the perception of being safe and doing the right thing, there are some instances where actually there's a legal requirement. And another of our customers, Starbucks in one of their countries, Australia, as it happened, used task execution, task management in a really interesting way. They had some regulations where when you're scheduling your staff with changeable schedules, you actually have an obligation to sit with them once a month and review the schedule. This is a thing that you have to do, compliance with the law down there. So how do you make sure that's happening? Again, you can send a note or make a call to a store manager and say, hey, it's really important that you do this. But how can you actually show that? Well, if you have a task management system, then you can know that the conversation's been had. There might be a survey where feedback is taken, and you can say, look, of course we're compliant with this, and here's the really strong trail to show that we're compliant. So, compliance has many different levels and many different reasons. And of course, the pandemic is a whole set of compliance issues that are new for everybody. But there are compliance issues that are completely unrelated. And again, being able to execute, yes, efficiently, but yes, with visibility is, I think, more important going forward than it ever has been.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's gone beyond. Historically, I think if you talk to people about task management, it's like, okay, big brother, checklist. Are people just going to sit and tick the boxes to think that head office is done? And it's much more than that. And yeah, certainly that whole compliant piece where things now can be, if the company's done all they can, but the individual's not done it, it becomes almost a personal lawsuit or litigation, not against a company. So as a leader of a location, you've also got to make sure that personally you're delivering the compliance because, if company X has done all they can with communication, training, but you've not delivered it, then it becomes your individual problem, not the organisation. So, yeah, it's really interesting. That whole, for me, health and safety angle moving forward. You mentioned the kind of the Shell example of more cleaning of the petrol station pumps and stuff. You can see massive benefits in that. You can also see in, as people maybe work less in head offices, that kind of fragmented way of working more from home, or a couple of days in the office, a couple of days in store, a couple of days at home, where I expect to be a pattern as well moving forward. How you keep that consistency across people becomes even more and more pivotal, let alone all the stuff we've just been through.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think that trend is there. So having a means of communicating that's easy to be remote, so something that people can run on their own devices. It used to be kind of optional. I remember, 5 years ago, maybe more now there'd be discussions around whether you put some sort of mobile enablement on the apps. It's not a question anymore. You have to mobile enable your workforce. But that creates a new problem, is do you want the 7 different parts of your IT ecosystem causing someone to need to look at an individual application, switch applications, not know when to switch applications, not know why, not know the new look and feel of the different applications. So bringing that together in one platform and driving all of these pieces together in a uniform way, orchestrating them, is really where the world's heading.
No, I agree, and we've seen it even more so speed up, haven't we, in the last 12 months or so. So let's pause there for episode 1 of this series of 3. So I think we've done a good job on task management. We're going to chat again in episode 2 around customer experience. So I'll catch you then. Thanks, Tim.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Simon.